Human Trafficking by the U.S. Church of Scientology by Stephen Douglas. Conclusion. Global human smuggling speaks of trafficking humans, mainly women and children, between countries without going through official immigration processes, where visas were required to enter countries. All the cases noted in this paper used official immigration processes. JHS refers to illegal border crossings, which did occur in one of the cases, that of Masha, who was smuggled across the Egyptian-Israeli border. With more than 1 million Russian immigrants in Israel, it is an easy task for smugglers to bring Russians into Israel illegally. The sponsors, like the transnational organized crimes group that pay receptionists in St. Petersburg to find unknowing victims in Russia's countryside, Scientologist recruiter Stephen Dreyfus coerces his victims by promising a new life on the other side. In both cases, they make promises to their victims, which they do not keep once they have transported their victims overseas. The only clear difference between the solicitors of sex slaves and the Church of Scientology is that the sex trade pays all expenses for their victims, including their visa, travel, and miscellaneous expenses. Confiscation of documents. In all cases discussed in this book, documents are confiscated by the hosts once the victims arrive in the destination country. This would appear to be the strongest and immediate way to control the victim. Araxia reported that their documents... See, I think she had someone with her. I got to find out if she just left the son there. Araxia reported that their documents were taken once they arrived at the church. Lack of documents added to the apparent lack of foreign language ability makes the victims almost entirely vulnerable to the whims of their new captors. Imagine that that's what's paying LAPD's extra payments. Scare tactics and threats. If confiscation of documents is not enough to contain the victims, both sets of captors have established methods to convince their victims to cooperate. The bordello owners use violence to convince their victims, as well as threats against members of their families back in Russia or their home countries. The Church of Scientology was not reported to have used violence. I think they do. But they did force their victim to sign supposed legal documents, including the billion-year contract, which was a brainwashing technique to convince their victims that they must do as they were told. Transnational crime. The perpetrators of these crimes are both Russian and foreigners. There are always parties on both sides of the border. Each criminal entity has an exporter and an importer. The Church of Scientology officers in St. Petersburg acted as the exporters in this case, and the Clearwater Church, Stephen, were the importers. Stephen was a receptionist in this case, selling the idea to naive, unknowing Scientologists to take his invitation and go to the USA. The owners of the bordellos, which buy the girls from Russia, are usually licensed businesses in their home countries. Certainly, the act of slavery and forced prostitution is a crime in any country. The Church of Scientology is a legally registered and acknowledged religion in the USA. If the INS were aware that they are abusing their R1 visa privileges, this would be considered a crime. It would be taken in different context, since religion is looked upon differently than the adult entertainment industry. The irony. But the one thing they both have in common is that they are supporting, promoting, and inviting the act of slavery in their establishments. Further investigations on R1 visas. On repeated occasions, I have attempted to interview officers of the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, U.S. Department of Justice, and the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. I have never been able to speak to anyone who would discuss the subject of the Church of Scientology. What does that tell you guys? Nor have I been able to obtain a copy of the interview given by Svetlana in July 1998. According to the State Department Personnel Directory, the consul that interviewed her is no longer working for the Foreign Service, nor is he listed anywhere in their files. Attempts have been made to get lists of personnel working in the St. Petersburg at the time, but all such requests have been denied. by all agencies involved. You see what I'm talking about, you guys? You guys know what's up. And not being part of the FOIA records.